Hello and welcome to the Enchanting Tales of Wilds of Eldraine. We're in the historic Brawl top 12. I am Grit Unsigned, the bottom of the 12, with our champion of Season 8, Hazor.
Yep, I'm Hazor. This is the Tails segment of our Wild of Eldraine set review. So, the clock has struck 12 on that previous video, everyone has fallen asleep, and we are entering the Land of Dreams, or in this case, the Enchanted Tales. We got 12 more cards that we think are going to
What
be
a
very good in
nightmare.
the format. So, so the first card we have is Doubling Season. A lot of you probably know this card, but for those who don't, it is 4 and a green. If an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many instead. If an effect would put one or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many instead. It doubles everything. It will double your Planeswalker loyalty, which is usually the most important thing. You can immediately ultimate your Planeswalkers. You create double tokens. For especially a lot of casual queue play, this is going to be in your games a lot.
Honestly, I'm a tokens player by heart. I've played a lot. I'm the Jetmare guy. I went 0-3 in events with the token style things, and doubling season alone is going to be one of the most beneficial. Vorinclex is already a very popular mono green commander type situation. Maybe not as popular as he used to be, but I'd argue another Vorinclex in the 99 is essentially a good spot for everyone in that play style.
Yeah.
The as a whole, I think it's definitely going to be played more for the counters ability than the tokens ability, because then Parallel Lives gives you that. Primal Vigor could also do that type situation. There's a lot of value overall in these formats, but it's the fact of how it benefits Planeswalkers is where it's going to see the most play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, moving on. We got a very fun card that's coming in. Impact Tremors. For 1 in red, you get an enchantment with. Wow, an enchantment in the Enchanting Tale. Shocker. Anyway, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremor deals 1 damage to each opponent. Now, this is a very, very popular token style deck. You got Krenko, Mob Boss to just make it type situation. You got Krenko, King Lynchpin to raise your tokens. You got Jetmare. You got all those token producers type situation. And Impact Tremors basically gives you a way so that you can just make all the tokens, not attack your opponent, and win the game.
Yeah. This card definitely goes in all the tokens decks. It's definitely good in that niche. I don't think for all you mono red aggro players out there that this is a particularly good card for mono red, because you need to play this and then play a few creatures after that. But for tokens, it's a very good card.
I see it as playable in dragons, playable in tokens, and playable in just go wide in general deck, like elves, if you
If you
flank
have
rule
Gruul
elves.
Elves, good for you.
I mean, isn't there like the Rada?
If that's an Elves deck now, yeah, I guess.
I guess. Look,
If
look,
you've figured out to
it's
make
a
Gruul
card
Elves, let me know.
it's a card that's definitely gonna see play, and a card that'll be annoying to face.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Alright, what do we got next? I actually kind of forgot. Alright, yes, that one. Rhystic Study. Another card that you probably know. 2 and a blue for an
Oh
enchantment.
no.
Whenever an opponent casts a spell, draw a card unless that player pays 1. We got a bit of lag.
Uh, you're a bit lag on your side.
Yeah, very laggy.
No worries, but I believe
I'll cut this part out.
if you want to read it again.
Alright. Yeah. So, yeah, I should read it again.
Well, either way,
Oh my, this is very lagging. Here, just give it 1 second to fix itself. Alright, I think we're good now. Alright, cool. I will just reread the card. Anyway, so, yeah, the card that you guys probably know is Rhystic Study. 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, draw a card unless that player plays 1. Your thoughts?
I hate people who play this card sometimes. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I think as a whole, the card is very annoying, and it definitely sees play in multiplayer format type situation. And it's like the smothering type situation. I think you need a very situational deck to make this work with smothering types. But with Rhystic Study, it's playable by itself.
Yeah,
We already got an example of it, style effect with Esper sold the Esper Sentinel, I believe it's called, where every time your opponent casts an instant sorcery, they have to pay X mana, where X is Esper's power. Otherwise, you draw a card. It's essentially like that, but only better in every way, and you should absolutely play it in every
Honestly, it's
blue
better
deck you can.
every way because it's 3 mana
I
instead of
argue.
1 and not a creature. But I guess
Or
not being a creature makes it harder to remove. But I don't think every blue deck wants this because this isn't a multiplayer format, and therefore you will be drawing far fewer cards with it. What else? Yeah, I guess if you can draw 3 cards off of it reliably, then you want to play it. But some decks just don't want to tap out or tap 3 mana sorcery speed to play a card that may or may not draw cards. So I think it could be
I
playable
could see
in
that.
some decks and not in other decks. It's definitely not as oppressive here as it is in your average commander table.
I guess multiplayer versus single player can make a huge difference.
Yes.
Moving on, we got the next enchantment, and why do I keep on saying that? They're all enchantments. Anyway, Goblin Bombardment. For 1 and a red, you can sacrifice a creature to deal 1 damage to any target. Now, in my opinion, a lot of people might think, why are we putting this above Ristic Study? Ristic Study is amazing type situation. Goblin Bombardment is probably not gonna see a lot of play. However, right now it's the splashability with it. With Goblin Bombardment, you can splash it in tokens. You can splash it in a sacrifice build deck. If Rada was able to get red mana, I would play this into him anytime because that's literally just a way to go infinite. There's so many different styles with Goblin Bombardment that in the long run leads it to be almost playable straight out, even if you're just slowing yourself down a turn. It's good early game, good late game, especially great if you have the things to eat with it. And since it does the damage to any target, I feel like you can take out opponents' boards with some of your weak chumps in, say, a deck like Franco, and then just go swinging in.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, Goblin Bombardment. There's a couple people in one of the Discord servers that are very excited about this card. They consistently brew sack decks. Shout out to, I believe, Dark Flame Master and Scales96 for being the chronic sacrifice deck brewers. This card is great for sacrifice decks. It lets you pitch your creatures for face damage, which is pretty good, and also creature damage if you need. There are also some builds of Ragavan. I think we're running Weaponize the Monsters for burn damage, and this card might be better than that in terms of it does less
it
damage, but it doesn't
absolutely
cost you
is.
mana. Yeah. 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 So this will definitely see play in various kinds of red decks, including tokens, as you mentioned too. All
All
right.
right, now
Next is Blind Obedience. It's a fun one. 1 and a white for a enchantment, obviously, with Extort. Extort is a keyword that says whenever you cast, I believe it's cast a spell. I actually don't remember offhand. Yeah, whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white, hybrid white-black. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. It also has the ability that artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Yeah, so in slower white decks, or I guess decks that want life, like occasional life gain, this card can be very good because you're just draining your opponents out every so often over the course of the game. So if you're playing slower, this will just have a very big effect. Also, it's a bit of a stacks piece. Worth noting that you can also play this in mono white decks or just decks that don't include black because the white-black hybrid symbol is in the reminder text and is therefore not part of its color identity.
And honestly, a lot of people talk about tax, all that type situation, but blind obedience alone is like authority of the consoles. It slows your opponent down just enough to allow you to get control of the board. Sometimes a lot of people will think that creatures entering tap won't matter since they had to have summoning sickness, but then you get situations where you're against like a Tyvar Jubilant Brawler who basically makes your creatures able to tap the moment, activate their abilities to turn to summon, and this slows that deck down by a large margin. The extort also helps well in general because if you're casting multiple spells a turn, you can basically pay pain and draining. And to do note, you gain all the life lost this way. So if we did have multiplayer with this format, you would be gaining, and like you had a 4-player match, you would be gaining 3 life per cast and extortion,
Yeah, we are
which
going
is
to
a
have that.
pretty big margin.
Yeah,
Not to mention, this card works extremely well with things like Heliod, because since you're gaining life from just casting a spell, it triggers Heliod, which lets you put a counter.
Yeah, as you
When I feel
mentioned,
like
people do not rate the creature tap stacks effect highly enough. The amount of games I've played against Thalia and Getrog and having just random creatures enter the battlefield taps they can't block or something, it's brutal. It can be very brutal.
indeed. Moving on, we're going to the next one. Greater Oromancy. For 1 and a white, you get other enchantments. You control House Shroud. For people who don't know what Shroud is, it's basically where no one can target that card. And enchanted creatures, you control have Shroud. So Shroud is a very niche ability. It was before Hexproof, but then Wizards decided, you know what? We need to give players the ability to target their own stuff and made Hexproof. But as a whole, Shroud is still an insanely powerful ability. Sure, it would probably be a downside if you were to use it in Aura's deck, because then you can't target the same creature with the more enchantments type situation, which is usually what those decks are that Voltron built. But on the other hand, this also makes it so that you can just make it your exiling spells in general that are enchantments just be unable to be destroyed with targeted removal, which can make a huge difference. You can make Curse of Silence not be able to be targeted. You can make just all your enchantments are protected from targeted removal, which alone makes huge difference.
Yeah, this is Starling Grove #2, and specifically mono white, but this will get played in every enchantment in every deck. Goshen Tai, uh, I'm forgetting that Sithis. Like, Sithis is definitely just a slot right in. Just a very good card for every enchantment style decks. Alright,
Mhm.
next we have Intruder Alarm. This is a fun one to place a little highly on this list, probably. It's 2 and a blue for creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap all creatures. There is funky combos you can do with this. I don't know actually many of them off the top of my head. I know Vanifar will really want this card; it just goes crazy with it. And then there's like some Locust God thing, or if you have any kind of tap draw card, or like tap draw card and discard a card with Locust God, this goes infinite with that too. There's a lot of fun combos you can do with it.
In my opinion, I think a lot of people think of just Intruder Alarm as a combo piece, but as a whole, it also still does pretty well. We were just mentioning about Blind Obedience making creatures enter the battlefield tap being a hindrance in many cases, but with Intruder Alarm, you can just make a token and then untap your entire board. Sure, you'll untap your opponent's board, but the people who usually use Blind Obedience or Authority of the Consuls usually don't have a lot of creatures to untap anyway. So what you're doing is you're making your wide board get untapped and then being able to swing. Then if they either go aggressive or play any creatures, your board gets untapped easily because you can then either make a token early or you can just have them make something. Either way, in the long run, you're gonna be able to untap your entire board. And since they go aggressive, you can then swing at them, then play something afterwards and untap your board.
Yeah. I also can't believe I
So,
forgot that literally anything that says tap make a creature goes infinite with this. So,
yep.
yeah.
Very
um,
simple card.
very simple, but very strong, which is why it's up all the way up here.
Moving on, we got a classic card. One card that a lot of people used to play in Modern a lot. Bitter Blossom. For 1 and a black, it is a beautiful enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token with flying. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, why is this so high on the list? It just makes the token each shared for a life type. And honestly, I think that a lot of people are sleeping on the token synergies in general. This isn't just a 1/1 token. It's a token that has flying, which means that it does good in blocking. It can go aggressive, all that. But I honestly think another reason to keep this in mind is that I feel Fairy Tribal is going to be really powerful once Eldraine comes through. Especially with, I mean, there's already that one Esper fairy that whenever you cast a fairy, an artifact or enchantment, you make a fairy. And honestly, this might be a perfect way for that deck to get even better,
This
since it
card
can get
definitely
you the.
goes in there. Yeah, this card, I've seen so many mono black decks playing Dreadhorde Invasion, particularly sack decks. This card is very good. It makes a very good creature Like a 1 with flying is it's not bad at all, and it makes it every turn for you at minimal cost. Uh, Especially with yeah. So by default, creatures every turn with flying are very good. In addition, you have now Beseech the Mirror, which we talk about in our other video. I'll see if I can link it. Beseech the Mirror can sack one of these tokens to get your one ring or whatever. So that makes it even better if it didn't need to be already. Um, there's just so many things you can do with it. It's yeah, just getting tokens every turn is very good.
Right, moving on.
All right. And number four, we have Utopia's Brawl. It's a green enchantment aura with Enchant Forest. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color. And whenever Enchanted Forest is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of the chosen color. This card is so high up because it's a 1 mana dork that cannot be removed by creature removal, and that is very strong. I
Honestly, this is one of the most broken cards in my opinion as a whole. A lot of people might be thinking on just talking about for historic brawl, but no, in general, this card is insane. For 1 mana type situation, it basically makes your land tap for 2 mana, meaning if you have a way to untap that land, which there's been easily shown many ways to do so in the formats, you're essentially netting so much more mana faster. Turn one, you just pay 1 mana, and you have 3 mana. Turn two, that's easily indirectable.
Yeah.
That
Three mana, Azusa turn 2 or something. Yeah, as I said, this card is hard to interact with. In addition, if you play it later than turn 1, it will give you back the mana spent to cast it immediately. So that's also just a very strong part about this card is that it doesn't have summoning sickness.
just a net value.
Yeah, so much value.
All right, so we were talking about value from that, and now we're going to move on to a different type of value. And our next card, number 3, Blood Moon. For 2 and a red, non-basic lands or mountains. I don't think I need to explain this card as much as a lot of people would think, because let's face it, we're in a multicolor format style thing. This card is broken for this style of thing. In if you're against like an Is It deck and you're able to get Blood Moon out, and if they don't have as many basic lands as they should, because you should be running a lot of basic lands in these style things, but people get greedy,
Yep.
they could be cut an entire color for a while.
Yeah. This card, just in general. Oh, so yeah, I should. Some of our viewers may not be familiar with the text, so just for the viewers, non-basic lands or mountains means that they will lose all other abilities and can only tap for red, none of the other colors.
They
So
become mountains,
this
nothing
card
else.
shines
Basic and
in
mountain.
like if you're playing mono red and casual queue and really hate those Atraxa players, this card will completely shut down those Atraxa players. Any 3 or 4 color deck, this card will just shut down immediately. And you will play it in probably most, if not all, mono red decks and a lot of 2 color decks that include red. Personally,
I
I
think
yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
no, no, no. You can go first.
Okay, so with my roll deck, I run 24 basics, which might be a high amount. It's 24 out of 41 of my lands are basics, and I am considering this as a main deck, just because how powerful it is. Because even if I lose a couple blue mana, I will still be fine, and my opponents might just be completely out of the game. It's very strong.
Uh, Sorry, you were saying Brawl, and I was
I
thinking
s
of Chief of
oh
Compliance.
no, it's Raw Storm Conduit. Yeah, that is that one.
Yeah, Rawl Storm.
Yeah,
Brawl.
yeah, that's the same name,
But yeah, as
different
you say,
different
it's
character.
Blood Moon alone is a worth running in general, because it also can shut things like Lotus Field. It can shut things like just the tree, the world tree type situation, making it so that your opponent say, "Oh, all my lands are now Woober." No, they ain't.
No, they are not.
But yeah, we both agree. Good card. Probably gonna see absolutely a lot of play.
Yeah, same with any of these cards, really. All right,
Well,
next we have Necropotence. It's 3 black mana for an enchantment with Skip Your Draw Step. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard, and you can pay 1 life to activate its ability to exile the top card of your library face down and put that card into your hand at the beginning of your next end step. So it's basically 3 mana, pay X life, draw X cards, and that is a very good rate. Also, if you Dark Ritual out on turn 1, you probably just immediately win the game. Besides just playing this card is broken. I think it's going to play very well in so many games.
Honestly, I think that this is going to be one of those cards that the competitive historic brawl group decides to probably hit if they need to in general, because my god, it is busted. You were already saying the Dark Ritual and Necropotence, but the thing is, you after you Necropotence, then you could just pay 3 life, draw the 3 cards type situation. So now you're back to 7 cards in hand, have a land, have Necropotence, and as a whole, don't have to worry in the long run in the game.
Yeah.
Because
Like,
now, whenever you, sorry.
yeah, it's just it's if it doesn't get countered and you aren't getting aggroed out completely, it probably just makes you win the game immediately.
Honestly, I feel like we're gonna definitely want to see this card be hit. I don't want to see it hit right away. No,
Well,
I'm
we'll see
always
how it plays
an
because it might be
advocate.
fine,
I'm not. Yeah, for all we know, we might be over exaggerating this card, and it could be unplayable. We never
but
know.
definitely not unplayable. But it might
Oh,
not be
really?
as broken as I think it
I
can
am
be.
definitely using
Eh,
a Rada. That's a fact.
yeah. All right. Top card.
And our top card for the set should be a shock for some, but a shock not to others. Land tax. For 1 white mana, you get an enchantment that has, at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Now, a lot of people think that this is going to be just a bit overhyped type situation, because you really want to see this in multiplayer format, because that in multiplayer format, there's always going to be probably one player that does it. But I feel like this card in general is just allows you to just also thin out your deck too much, because let's face it, there's always a chance you don't want all these lands in your deck type, and just being able to just take 3 out of your deck so that then you can draw something that isn't a land could be a big difference.
Yeah. If you are on the play, or your deck is running a low land count, and then just might have less lands than the opponent. Sorry, not on the play, on the draw. Or your deck is running less lands than your opponent, and you might just be missing land drops later in the game. This card, honestly, I'm going to compare it to Ancestral Recall. It's effectively sometimes a 1 mana draw 3, and there's not really much else to say. Even if those cards are all lands, you're still getting 3 cards for 1 mana.
And it's during your upkeep too, which makes a big difference, because that means you're taking 3 lands from the cards from the card you might draw for your draw step.
Yeah. Effect killing normally is negligible, but this could have some effect. Because 3 cards is a lot more than one. Yeah,
And I feel like that's it
that
for
is
us.
it. Yep. Thank you
Uh,
for watching.
so that was the Enchanting Tales. We hope you have a wonderful day. We're gonna probably start brewing for our decks for once the new cards come out, and playing it, and hopefully getting into the season 9
Yep. Happy
in
brewing.
top 8. So have happy brewing, and I hope to see you soon. Peace.